Grand Theft Auto 6 has been delayed once again, and this time it breaks another one of those unwritten rules that we, the incredulous fans, desperately held on to, the precedent that Rockstar had never delayed a game after officially confirming a release date. And with the date set for May 26, the Rockstar seemed pretty confident about being able to make it in time for the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. However, as in any production of such magnitude, unexpected issues can arise. And according to what we've learned, the final phase of Grand Theft Auto 6's development has become a dark, bottomless pit that Rockstar is desperately trying to climb out of. All of this makes sense now when we look back at a very pessimistic leak that once again, blinded by hope, fans chose to ignore just a few months ago. Today that leak makes total sense and sets off alarm bells everywhere. Since the massive leak back in 2022, the GTA 6 project had not been in such danger. Rockstar is now in a textbook checkmate situation. Let's go back to the previous delay in May of this year, 2025. Just a few days after that first major blow to the commercial phase of the game, a leak appeared that many of us decided not to take too seriously. The source was Gamerroll, a user who had gained quite a bit of credibility after correctly guessing the full names of the main protagonists, at a time when this information had not yet been revealed and we only had the first trailer available. That clearly couldn't have been just a lucky guess. Those names weren't common enough to randomly hit both of them. At that moment, we realized that this user really did have a reliable contact feeding them direct information from inside Rockstar. But of course, it's one thing to get a bit of info and another very different thing to interpret it or to know whether it's exaggerated compared to reality. Going back to that specific leak, it contained an overwhelming amount of information about GTA 6's development, which was strange in itself. It's one thing if your friend who works at Rockstar leaks you the names of the protagonists as a little treat so you can look good with your audience, but for a Rockstar employee who's under a confidentiality agreement to reveal all the internal details that Gamerroll exposed that day, that's something much more serious, dangerous, and of course, unlikely. That leak actually gave us a massive amount of details about GTA 6, from how the map will be structured, the organization of the story, the plot of certain missions, unrevealed mechanics and surprises, and generally a huge amount of information that no sane person would share just like that. It's so extensive that if you want, we can dedicate a full video to it in the coming days, so make sure to follow me so you don't miss it. But what really set off all the alarms were two specific points that talked about the progress of development. Trailer 2 only shows scenes from chapters 1 to 3 of the story. Chapters 4 and 5 are still unfinished. A large part of chapter 5 has been cut and is being reworked. Both statements were truly alarming and gave us the first clues that something was going wrong with Rockstar's highly anticipated game. At that point, with still 11 months left before release, nearly half the story, 2 out of 5 chapters, being unfinished, and chapter 5 being restructured, which implies script rewrites, recalling actors for motion capture, voice recording, programming, and so on, during a phase that should have been focused on final touches, testing, and fixes. That was a major red flag. It told us that the May 26th date wasn't as certain as we had thought. Back then, blinded by excitement, we chose not to believe it. Personally, I didn't completely dismiss it, but I did think it was exaggerated, that maybe the issue wasn't as big as described. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Just before the most recent delay that hit the game last Thursday, some very alarming things began happening inside Rockstar Games. The company fired 34 unionized employees under the excuse that they had leaked content about the new GTA. This incident triggered a wave of protests outside Rockstar's headquarters in Edinburgh and Take-Two's offices in London. A few hours later, a Rockstar employee released a statement anonymously which said the following. Hey everyone, Rockstar employee of many years here. I am also a member of the union. Last week, my colleagues who were in the studio were each individually messaged by Human Resources for a short friendly meeting under the innocent guise of, hey, are you free for a quick chat? Upon attending this meeting, they were handed an envelope with a short letter stating that their employment had been terminated for gross misconduct regarding posts made in Discord. They failed to provide any evidence when asked, nor was any stated in the letter, and they did not offer any further explanation or reasoning, and no other reason. They refused the employees' right to union representation in the disciplinary meeting, which is against United Kingdom employment law, and they were escorted out of the studio. The meeting lasted less than 5 minutes. For colleagues who weren't in the studio that day, they received a phone call from Human Resources that lasted less than 2 minutes, telling them they were fired and that they'd received the same letter as above. I'm aware of one employee who had a panic attack at that moment, and Human Resources hung up on them during that panic attack, showing zero concern for their well-being. I remember that after the crunch period of Red Dead Redemption 2, Rockstar had restructured the entire company to prevent new labor controversies in the future. The long development time frame of Grand Theft Auto 6 was partly meant to avoid another episode of worker exploitation and dehumanization by higher management. These colleagues of mine were hard workers who have spent many years at Rockstar in critical roles, some for more than 18 years, and none of them have ever had a disciplinary action in that time. They're not easily replaced, and this will definitely affect our ability to meet project deadlines. These are senior artists, animators, quality assurance testers, designers, programmers, and producers, including leads. All are incredibly talented people who were proud of their work across multiple Rockstar titles, and all they wanted was the best for the company and their fellow colleagues. Some of these members were off sick, recovering from surgery or on paternity leave, fired without pay, losing their careers, struggling financially right before Christmas, and even facing the risk of losing their visas to work in the United Kingdom. Immigrants in the United Kingdom depend directly on their jobs to be able to reside in the country, so you can imagine the kind of nightmare that many of those people are going through right now. From working on the most anticipated video game in the world for the biggest studio in the industry, to suddenly facing the risk of being expelled from the country where their entire life is established. Let me make this clear, I never saw any discussion or leaking of Rockstar projects in the Union Discord. The only discussions were about unionization efforts and working conditions at Rockstar. The Discord wasn't public, it was a private group that only included Rockstar employees and IWGB union officials. This was union busting. Nothing else. Everyone fired was a union member, and most of them were from the organizing committees of each United Kingdom studio. Just 1 week before, the union had reached around 200 members, passing the 10% threshold required to seek recognition and begin collective bargaining, allowing us to negotiate directly with management on key issues that affect us. Worsening crunch, inadequate pay, and inflexible working conditions. Clearly, Rockstar seems to have used a dirty excuse to get rid of a group of employees that were inconvenient for them. The reasons could vary. Perhaps they wanted better pay, improved schedules, fairer working conditions, or simply a healthier work environment. But regardless of the reason, using the excuse of leaking content to fire them is a very shady move, especially considering how vague that accusation is when you're simply talking with your co-workers. It's hard to believe they were actually discussing things like Jason and Lucia's ending in a union meeting, honestly. They've now fired over 34 of us. There were more than 250 of us in that union or employee Discord group. There's a fear that if they get away with this, nothing will stop them from doing it again and again. Those of us lucky enough to still be here work in fear. Afraid to talk during tea breaks, afraid that we're next, too scared to go outside the studio and talk to our colleagues protesting outside, fearing retaliation. Morale in the studio is at a rock bottom. When we should be excited about the year ahead, we're completely deflated. Our trust and confidence in each other are shattered. And that's the truly heartbreaking part, because for us in the union, our only ambition was to make Rockstar a happier, fairer, safer, and more equitable place. What has happened clearly shows that we care more about the well-being of our Rockstar colleagues than the company itself does. The union remains strong and is fighting to win the reinstatement of every dismissed Rockstar employee through legal means and campaigning. This fight is critical, because if Rockstar gets away with this, they will continue treating their workers with disdain, disrespect, and subjecting them to ongoing illegal practices. That is the full statement from a Rockstar employee who is still working there and has witnessed how 34 of their colleagues were fired in a dirty and cowardly way. As I said at the beginning of this reading, Rockstar had restructured the entire staff precisely so that a labor scandal of this magnitude would never happen again. What happened with Red Dead Redemption 2 came to light only after the game's release, but this time is happening when there's still a full year left before launch. Not only has it exploded much earlier, but it also seems they're following the same path as before, with the difference that this time the workers have decided not to allow it and to form a union. Coincidentally, the announcement of the delay happened on the exact same day as the protest, but contrary to what many people think, this wasn't a reaction from Rockstar or an act of retaliation for that strike. The decision to delay the game had been made internally for weeks, and they likely just chose that day because they had to present the new date during Take-Two's investor call, which forced Rockstar to announce it publicly no later than that day. In any case, Grand Theft Auto 6 has now been rescheduled for November 19th, 2026, a date that is currently 1 year and 2 weeks away. Hopefully this will finally be the definitive release date for GTA 6, because the possibility of more delays seems to continue hanging over the title for the rest of its commercial phase. The nightmare that is currently unfolding inside Rockstar's offices can't bring anything good for the game. A toxic work environment and demoralized employees can only lead to a drop in quality and more missed deadlines. which will in turn make the budget skyrocket even further. And according to forecasts, Rockstar has already gone over its initial budget. To be completely honest, the reality is that GTA 6 is turning out to be a project completely unlike anything we've ever seen. Not only within Rockstar, but in the entire industry. We've spent years trying to make predictions based on patterns that never actually apply. But this development is absolutely unique. It doesn't matter that Rockstar had never before delayed a game with a final date already announced. It doesn't matter how many times Rockstar delayed Red Dead Redemption 2 in the past or how long it took between those delays. The company's behavior with GTA 6 doesn't match any of its past cases, not even remotely, and that makes every possible scenario believable right now, including yet another delay around the middle of next year, 2026, because Rockstar is not in any hurry with GTA 6. They don't care about scandals about budgets or about time. What they want is to deliver a perfect product, and to reach that perfection they're willing to invest as much time as it takes. That means GTA 6 will probably be a game that feels alive from beginning to end, and even after the end. We all know that in Rockstar's open worlds, the early missions usually feel vibrant and full of things to do, but by the time you reach the end of the story, everything tends to feel more empty, more static, and any resemblance to that lively world from the start of the game is pure coincidence. Rockstar probably wants to change that with GTA 6 to create a truly perfect experience. If the final chapter is giving them trouble, they likely don't want to repeat what happened with the epilogue of Red Dead Redemption 2, where we could clearly see New Austin being much less alive than the rest of the map, and the territory of Mexico left half developed, having been cut from the final game just so they could meet the deadline. We've gotten used to seeing unfinished content, cut storylines, or noticeable differences in quality between characters, simply because they ran out of time. But with GTA 6, Rockstar isn't rushing. They don't care about the budget limit. They have enormous ambition. Their goal is to create the greatest video game ever made. The only thing they still seem to lack is that humanity they once promised. The humanity of the artists who are actually making this incredible world possible. In the coming days, we'll have much more to talk about regarding GTA 6. So remember to subscribe and leave a like, along with a comment sharing your thoughts on this seemingly endless wait we're going through for GTA 6.